So over here at the campus of the Great Tikkun Elevator Kollel. So here we are, and we are looking at the Zohar for the 6th day of the week of Parshas Vayikra. Today is the date of YESOD. Let's learn the Zohar to where the Zohar has been going through a period where there are alternative names and alternative understandings of the 10 spheros. So here we are, we're listening to what Rebbe Lazarus has to say, and the Zohar says as follows. Tenyana, he said the second tikkun, that is the second sphera, is called Yod Key. Begin the Chochmasa Apik He Besasin Be. Because Chochmah brings out the letter K, which is hidden inside of Chochmah. Below is Parsha La'alman, and once that comes out, they two become connected, and they never separate. No, but Parsha La'alman, it never separates from the and we explained it like this. The Nahar Yotze Me'eden, and a river comes out of Eden. Now, listening to the Sfaradim that I daven with, they pronounce Eden like Iden. I can't really, it's hard, Iden, something like that. Anyway, Kahai Gavna, and it looks like this. Now, what he's trying to show us is that the two extension, the Yud, the letter, and we've seen this twice, and we're going to see it again. He says the letter Yud itself, which represents Chochmah, can also be divided into two other letters. That is Yud, it's Yud, Vav, Daled. And so you switch them around, and you put the Vav here, and you put the Daled on top of it. That makes the letter Hey. So we learn the whole thing comes out from Abba. Yud, Kama de Itmar, comes out of that letter Yud, as we have said. So he said, V'lovavasar Yak, so now you have the two of them together. The lo misparshim el alman, they never separate. Once they come together, they never separate. He says, Yud apik Hey kahai gavna. So the Yud brings out this concept of the Hey, which we just mentioned before, which this is a Daled over a Vav, which is the Yud Vav Daled, Hare Yud. And you can see that if you count the gematria of it, it's still 10. So the river of bracha, the river of bounty, of shefa, comes all out from this. It comes out from there and it pours out from there. Then below that there are two children. Two children that come out from this yak. Mesitra the Abba, from the side of Abba, which is a letter Yud, and Nafik Ben comes a son, a second generation. The Ha'achid Beyud, because it's tied to the letter Yud, which is to see how it's tied. V'achid B'hahu Nahar, but it also joins together with this river that we've been talking about, which comes from Aidid. On Mesivta the Iman Nafka's Bas, for the side of the female comes out the concept of the daughter. The Ihu Nahar the Tor, she's also called the lower river. V'hai Ben, so this son, Is Meshach Levaser V'nak Beganaihu, so it comes after this. In other words, I'm not sure exactly what he meant by after, but we'll find out. V'nafik Benaihu, V'hu Vav, it's a letter Vav. V'da Yaris, so the one that is the Vav inherits, that's what he says. Let me see if I can get this moved over here. Inherits La'aba La'ima, the Vav inherits from both of them. Now, I've told you before that this word mechamanusa, which means faith, but it's deeper, and I haven't got it yet. I was looking for it, looking for a real good understanding of what amuna means. So he said, "Is kasher be mechamanusa the kula," and it's tied together with the ultimate amuna, which is coming from the pintal yid that is connected to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Umine itzan bata, from there that. From the son, then therefore he is able to bring sustenance to the daughter. From the same inheritance that the son inherits, he gives that over to the daughter. Now let's see what the Matuk Midabash wants to help us out here to understand it. So he said, V'zesha Amatinyana, this is the second sphera, is called Yak. Shem Hasheni Hu Yud Key. Begin the Chochma Apik Hey. Divisha Os Yud Malaya. So when you spell the Yud out as Yud Vav Daled, like we see right here, he says Malaya Shebechachma. It's in Chachma. Hotzia os he de bina. So it brings out the letter he that comes from bina. And we just talked about it a little bit. You can talk about it more. Vasasim be, but he stumabo, that is that the he is hidden inside of the sound quality, which is the ud, right? Is the sound quality of the yud. So he says he stuma bo ba'osias vav and dalad the yud. YESOD haben v'chachma, which is a concept. If you looked at the yud, you'd be able to see how it's possible using the sound quality that it actually has two other letters associated with it, can be made into a letter hey, hidden inside of the whole concept. V'lo yisparshan la'almim minay, and this is a rule about Abba ve'ima, they never separated. Ve'ein nifreder b'mena la'olam. Abba never, as always, in other words, the yud always has a vav daled in it. Just have to look for it. It's there. Ki Abba ve'ima iloyin zivugayu tediri, because he said that the rule is that the yichud of Abba ve'ima iloyin never stops. It's tadir. It's continuous. We explained this before. Because it's written that there's a river that comes out of Eden. Bina nikras nahar, so Bina, which is called a nahar. Yotzes machachma nikras Eden comes out from chachma, which is called Eden. Kahai gavna, so it looks like what we said before. This is a dalet on the top and a vav on the bottom, and those are the two extension letters of the word of the letter yud. Ki mivav dalet, from that conversation, that extension, the vav dalet of the yud and asis os hey, you can make the hey. So this has been learned out. V'hachu uchlifna me'aba yud kama de itmar v'chein l'madadere me'avi as inyan os yud kamosha lamado. So Rebbe Lozer says, I learned this from my father. Now I'm saying, like in terms of what we're hearing from Rebbe Memran, is that Rebbe Memran is saying that there are really two qualities here. One is the quality of the form of the letter itself. And the other one is that if you actually use the letter, it has to be pronounced. So it means that the form and the pronunciation are two separate energies. And that's what he wants to say. The more specific it becomes, then the more physical it becomes. So therefore, as it becomes more specific and you have to add in those letters with sound qualities, that becomes Bina. Shaba nirmazim sod Abba ve'ima iloin, so that in this name, Yak, we have a reference to Abba ve'ima iloin. The Vasa Yak, then after that, V'achar Shem Yak nirmez od pam. So now we see this name Yak, it comes around again. V'aniki He Rishona, let's look at the He Rishona, Yod Key, the Shem Avaya, which refers to, in this case, Tavuna. Tavuna is the name for that aspect of Bina, which goes directly into Zeranpin. It's actually a different parts of, but it's related to Bina. Tavuna. Uvazavis al-yomini, so if you come to the right corner then, al-yomini, the upper right corner, shalahei, kosvim hasofrim os yud, there's a little coats at the end of the hay. Socha katana, a yud katana, hamekasheres as base kave ha-hay, which really ties together the two different lines of the hay. Vehi Yisrael Saba. So let me see this other part. I didn't really quite understand this. He says on the hay, kosvim asofrim os yud gitana. So they write a little tiny yud. Now maybe I got it in the wrong place. I'm not sure, because he says that little tiny yud. Hamikasherish as base kavi hahain. So we have two lines in the hay itself. So I'm thinking there are three lines in the hay, but he says there's two lines in the hay. So let's say the two lines refer to the Dalet and the Vav. That's what I'm thinking now. Let me see if I can understand it better. Behi Yisrael Sava. So he says this little kutz that's on the hay, whether it's, he said 2 lines, 3 lines, I don't really understand that. He says exactly how he applied it. So, but he says, but this little kutz is called Yisrael Saba, which means the second generation of Abba. So he said, Hare Gam Zu Hi Yak, because Yisrael Saba and Tavuna also make a Yak. So it's the Yak up above, the high Yak, and a low Yak. The low Misparsha and the Alman, these also. Ki Gam Yisrael Saba Tavuna. They never separate from each other. They're always in Zivug. So now let's explain more about how the hay is written. He said, Amar. He said, V'apek hey kahai gavna, and this what we said before. It comes from the letter Yud. Hasofer maskil liksov os Yud. So here's what he says: the person who's writing the letter, he begins to write the letter Yud. He starts with this. The hey. We're trying to write a hey. He starts with a little kutz like this Yud. Moshech memeno, and he pulls from it or extends from it. Beis kavim shall os hey, the two lines of the hey, a letter hey, ka'ayin zeh hatzir, which is similar to this form. I'm not sure which form. Hare yud, hare bi'arti lecha inyan yud, shehi chachma, yud is chachma, shall zois ha-tavuna, it's the chachma of this tavuna, harishayna v'nikra Yisrael Saba, and it's called Yisrael Saba. Now, in relationship to Devuna, he says that the Yisrael Saba, which is the male aspect, which is let's call it the small Abba, he says that one is tied onto it in this kutz. So then there's a river that comes out of Yisrael Saba. That is the rest of the letter Hey. Tavuna, shehi atzmos, this is the also essence of the letter Hey, in other words, the letter Hey itself. Hayotzes v'nim shachem min hayud shebekeren sherman zabis shalo. So the corner, so let's look over here. Here's a Hey. Can we see this? Okay. So Hey, he wants to say, I think he wants to say that these two right here at this corner, there's a little tip on it. And that's how you start to write it. Okay, this tip, if we see it on a Hey, then we really realize that we're dealing with the partsufim of Yisrael Saba Tavuna, which are like the smaller, the extension of Yisrael of Abba Ve'ime Elohim. Let's go on. He says here we are V'hai Ben. So he says, no, sorry, I'm over here. V'lasata trin benin the nafkin minai. So down below them are two children that come out of the combination of Abba Ve'ime Elohim, then Yisrael Saba Tavuna. Yisrael Saba Tavuna then brings out these children. The Meforish Misitra de Abba Yud Nafik Ben. So let's talk about the male side. From the male side comes out the son. Mitzad Abba, behind the Yisrael Saba. Now here we're talking Yisrael Saba, but we're calling him Abba. Shuhu Yud, which is the letter Yud. Yotze Ben, Shuhu Zeranpen, comes out Zeranpen. The whole Achid Be Yud, because Zeranpen is tied to that Yud. There's a relationship between Zeranpen, which is male, and Chachma, which is also male. In this case, the Chachma is called Yisrael Saba. V'achid b'hachu nahar, and it joins it together with that nahar. What's the nahar? Who achos b'os yud the Yisrael Saba, so that this os yud, which is the little kutz on the Hey, it represents Yisrael Saba. V'achos b'tevunach nikras nahar, but it also at the same time is attached to the rest of the Hey. Kinai the Abba, because he wants to say the lower three spheres of Abba, which we've discussed in detail, is the Netzach Hod Yesod of Abba. V'nahi the Ima, also the Netzach Hod of Ima, because remember that we have shown you and told you before that Abba is inside of Ima, and they are always together except in one place. And that we will see, if you listen to the Shiurim on Purim, you'll hear that. The V'nai the Ima mislavshim im hamochim b'sos their anpin, they're clothed with their mochin inside of them into their anpin v'hum makabel mishnechem, and therefore their anpin is receiving. I think I'm losing the place from both of them. Mesitra the Ima nafkas bas. So for the other side, for the side of Tavuna, comes out the daughter. Mitzad of Tavuna yotzes bas shehi hamalchus, comes out the daughter, which is malchus. Dihi nahar the tahol, she that is the lower river. Shehi sod nahar atachno. Now let's finish up, and the Zohar says, V'hai ben is meshach l'basa v'naf benayu. V'zecha ben shul zer anpin. Now we understand that the son is zer anpin. Zer anpin acher yichud Yisrael Saba Tavuna, after the time when Yisrael Saba Tavuna come into are in yichud, that he appears after that time. Mehem l'mochim de gadlus, and so therefore yotza mehem. So therefore, as he is being generated from the power of Abba Ve'ima, that is Yisrael Saba Tavuna here. Yatsa Bechem B'Mochin the Godless, it brings out Mochin the Godless into Zer Anpin. V'hu Vov, Zer Anpin is a Vov. V'Zer Anpin hu sod Vov, the Shem Avaya. V'da Yaris L'Abba L'Ima, and this is the one that inherits from Abba and Ima. V'hu Yarish as a Mochin Abba Ve'ima Shem Yisrael Saba Tavuna, because this is the one that inherits Mochin from Abba Ve'ima, which are in fact Yisrael Saba Tavuna. Ki nahi the Abba Ve'ima, because the nahi of Abba Ve'ima, im hamochin nitnan l'zah, because we understand the nahi of Abba Ve'ima, and we've seen this before in many of our drawings. See, so the nahi of Abba Ve'ima v'iskasher bein b'chumanusa dekula, v'miskasheres in Zer Anpin. It ties itself into Zer Anpin, binds itself into Zer Anpin. Amunas are called the faith of everything. All the possibilities are there. Shehi Amalchus, which is Malchus, she is the ultimate recipient. Shehi Amunaso She Yisrael, because it's Malchus, another name for Malchus is Amunah. But like I say, as I understand, you want to say that I know a fact. I took a test and they said, what's another name for Malchus? And you say Amunah. But that doesn't tell me what Amunah is yet. I'm still looking. So he said, Umine itzan brauta, and from Zer Anpin, he feeds his nook. Zer Anpin nizan is habas, machi yerusa de ichu yaris. So from that inheritance that he gets from Abba Ve'ima, the nai of Abba Ve'ima containing his mochen, have mochen for him and mochen for her as well. So he says Yaris Ma'oso Yerusha Samochin, because he takes it from the mochin that he's received. Yar, that he is Yarish Ma'abba Ve'ima, Meir Lo Ma'aras Amochin, so he shines into the nukva from that ha'aras. So we went through a little bit here the concept of Yud and Key. Yud Key is there's a Yud Key Ilah and a Yud Key that's on the lower end. What does that mean? It means that in order to bring these mochin into Zer Anpin, they need to be squeezed more. It's not just enough that the tipul should come from Chochma and be placed into the nuk to Ima to Bina, and then just state that. No, in order to come into Zer Anpin, it needs to go through another parts of, or two parts of him, which are Yisrael Saba Tavuna, which come together at the time of the birth of Zer Anpin and bring him all of this shefa that's coming from up above. This is Baruch Fleischman, 6th day, Parshas Vayikra. Have a wonderful Shabbat.